We're glad that the Tuffords came to visit us today. It's not very often that we get a chance to have so many generations all in the same house. Especially when it's in my house. That's neat.
That's right.
Yeah.
How many?
4. No.
1, 2,
4.
4 generations.
Right.
4 generations. Be another 20 years before we get another generation in this family.
Yeah. Yep, yep. I don't think we'll be around.
You may not have noticed, but there's a camera up there. And what we're trying to do tonight is trying to make it so that when Bradley grows up, he knows who his great-grandparents are. And besides knowing who his great-grandparents are, we'd like him to understand who his grandparents are and his parents, and maybe even his great-great-grandparents. This is important to me. I always feel like I have a greater responsibility to do better as an individual when I realize how much sacrifice my grandparents and great-grandparents sacrificed, and I feel maybe a little too proud. I feel like they did it for me. And at least when they talk to me, they try to tell me that they sacrificed for me, so I'm going to believe them. And I feel like all of Bradley's ancestors have sacrificed for him and have gone through good times and gone through bad times. And I'd like him to know of the good times that his grandparents, great-grandparents, and great-great-grandparents went through. And especially tonight, I'd like to discuss possibly their 14 years or months or whatever time frame that his grandparents and so on had a chance to meet, and how they met, and how they, what circumstances led up to their marriage. And the hot seat right over there, our grandma and grandpa, are going to be on film for a little bit and give a chance to explain how their parents met. So if, maybe we could start off with Grandma, and she could think for a minute on and explain how her parents met and how she started out in life. You think you can do that? Maybe I can do that.
Well, my father, Claude Allbee, met my mother, Myrtle Sweeney, when he was working for the Denver and Rye Grand Railroad. And she was working for the, when they used to stop the trains, and they'd have dinner. What were those restaurants called?
Oh. I know what you're talking about.
At the depot?
Well, no, it was regular restaurants.
Yeah,
And
there's a movie about that.
Yeah, and they had a point where they, well, my mother was a waitress in this eating house. I guess it just was a Denver Rye Grand eating house, maybe.
Well, there was a firm that was hired to take care of all the railroads.
Yeah, I can't think of that name now. And they didn't get married right away. I don't know too much about their courtship or anything. But my mother was a year older than my father. So mother was 27, I think, and my dad was 26 when they got married. And my mother was considered old. In those days, you know, when you got up pretty close to 30, you were getting old. But then they got married, and they had me then in Chalma, New Mexico. I was born in the year 1904. My mother was Irish, Scotch-Irish, and she had red hair. So I asked my dad one time, I said, how come that you married Mother? He said she had such beautiful hair. He said it was a crown gold. It wasn't a real bright red, but it was just a beautiful bronze. And then, of course, she took ill and had to be taken away from home. And So my brother and I, we just grew up and going to relations and housekeepers and this and that for years and years and years.
So you don't really know how they met? Met and courted?
No, I don't know anything about it, that part of it, and I don't know how long it was between the time they met and the time they got married. I don't know. Only just the circumstances. Yeah.
Great. I don't know how much Grandpa can express about his. I don't know how much you'll be able to express about your parents. Do you remember how your parents met?
Yeah, I know. Grandpa can't remember. But his mother was Winifred Wade, the daughter of a Methodist minister. And his father was William Moss Tufford. And he was born in New York City, and then he came west and homesteaded in Nebraska. And then he I don't know how he happened to get into Denver. And Grandpa Wade had a church, a Methodist church that he was a pastor of. And William Tufford used to go there to attend service. He was a very religious man. And so they met each other, and his mother was one of the most beautiful women I ever saw. We have their wedding picture, and she's out of this world. She was so gorgeous, and there was quite a age difference between the two of them. And he traveled around quite a bit, and he sold land, and then he was a contractor, and I don't know how long they knew each other either. This is the thing we don't know. But they were married in Greeley, Colorado in 1896. And they had 6 children from their union. So that's about all. But,
Grandpa the oldest? Grandpa the oldest?
He's the third. Oh no, yeah, he's the third child. They had a daughter, Lella, and a daughter, Allene, and then Bill's sister, and who comes next? Wendell, and Raymond, and Evelyn, and Allene died when she was 30 years old from her cancer. About what?
I'd like to, in 1910.
You want to speak up now?
In 1910, my father knew some people that had putting a canal out in Utah, and they sent him out there as superintendent of that canal. 1910. I was on the Ute Indian reservation. And so my older sister Lola and I and my father, we went out there. And, there's no railroad out there at that time. They didn't yet, but we had to go 110 miles by coach, stagecoach.
How long did it take you to take that 110 miles for stagecoach? How long did it take you to go 110 miles for a stagecoach?
I think we made it in a day.
In one day?
Yeah, they had 4 horse teams and the big old coach. They changed horses about 4 times a day.
Were those rough rides? Was it rough rides?
Well, yeah. They had leather for springs.
Yeah.
And they walked back and forth.
What'd they do, since it took all day, what'd they do when you had to go to the bathroom?
They shop every so often.
And what'd they do? There wasn't any bathroom there.
Well, they got them wanting back in.
That was the way stations. Well, yeah, they stop at the way stations, you see.
Well,
and that's when they changed the horses.
They didn't get, yeah. We landed in Port Duchesne, and that's as far as the stage went. So, at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and so my father and I and sister, we had to walk up to the office where she was.
How far was that?
2.5 miles. And it froze at night and icy. So,
You were only.
there, I was 10 years old and I was in the 4th grade. And so I started school then. So, and the school teacher, they had Danish girl. For everything, she'd say everything. They're doing some arithmetic I never done before. So, yeah, one of the boys took me out in the yard and showed me how to do it. Then, after I'd been out there for a while, I sent for my mother, and she was always born in the city, and she got out there, had to go bread baking, had to do everything. Wash on a washboard, water off a dish, and she only got so high.
So she didn't like it.
Well, I don't think she pretty. It was just an entirely different atmosphere, you know. Go from where they had every convenience in Denver, and then go out there where there wasn't anything. They had coal oil lamps, and she'd have to cook everything. She spent half her lifetime cooking.
So that's where they stayed for the rest of their
Yeah.
life?
Mm-hmm. Oh no, they moved later. But you left Utah when you was 15 years old, and he started out on his own when he was 15 years old. Then he worked around in Utah. And Helper, Utah was where he worked on the locomotives, and he couldn't take that because it made him sick. Something around coal smoke. Yeah. So, I don't know. Then he went into service. When he was 19 years old, he was how much? He was 6 feet something tall and weighed 210 pounds or something like that.
6 foot, 1.5 inches. I weighed 210 pounds.
That's a pretty good sized young man.
Yeah.
Well, when he went to join the Army, or the Air Force it was, wasn't it? Why, the recruiter said something around, he never even questioned him. He didn't have to answer me. He says, well, you're 21. And look at you, I know you're 21. And here he's only 19.
Oh.
And so the services got him 2 years older.
So, recruited officer, went in and got recruited. He said, you're 21, he said. I never say anything, he wrote it down. That's the Army, it's about 3 years older than I am.
Can't imagine who would do anything like that.
Oh, I can't either.
Yeah?
That's different though. He didn't say anything. I did.
Yeah, you did, huh?
But the reason, young boy, when I was out from around the country, they had big pictures of that was right at World War I. And it said, join the Army to learn to fly.
Is that what you wanted? Did you want to learn how to fly?
Learn to fly, take your pick. So we got there, and first day we got to camp, I had to get my uniform. And they didn't have any, they had these leggings, you know. They didn't have a pair of Sydney. And so they said, take your pick over, okay? So we, first morning, got out in formation, got crap. We all marched up to the wood shack. Okay, here, take your pick, shovel or anything.
Pick or shovel, huh?
Yeah, pick or shovel. Yeah.
Take your pick, shovel, hoe, whatever it be. Take your pick.
Yeah.
My mother was, that was one thing for her. She was real small. But she took it fine, all right.
Yeah, she went through it a lot. She went through, it was a rough frontier woman, life could be for her. And she was, she wouldn't go anywhere unless she looked just right. And she was slow, she worked slow. And sometimes it'd take her 3 or 4 hours to get herself ready. But when she was ready, why, she was fit and polished. Everything was just had to be so.
Yeah, tell about how she took the key.
Oh, yeah. When we were in Kaysville, Utah during the Depression, we went up on Grandpa Tufford's orchard land, and we lived in a tent house. Bill fixed it so that the walls were about 3 or 4 feet high, and then we stretched canvas over. So that's where we slept, and our cooking stove was out in the orchard. And then Lella, the oldest daughter, was there with her family, what was left of them, and Grammy and Grant. So they were on Norman relief that time. So we got in on a tool with the flour and everything that way, and we could use what like eggs and what was in the garden, but there were certain products that we weren't supposed to use because they were for sale. But Grammy decided that she was going to bake a cake. She had to lay her cake pans, and she had to do everything by hand. So it took her about 3 to 4 hours to get that cake all baked and icing in between the layers and on top. It was a beautiful cake. When I saw it, looked about like that. She had just excellent results from it. And so then she was so proud of that cake, and so it was that evening, I think it was, when we walked up to the main house, and she was kind of sitting off by herself, and she said, "Roberta, I'm never going to make another cake." Well, I said, "Well, why, Grammy?" "Because that cake you baked was beautiful." "That was the trouble," she said. "It was too good." And she said, "It was gone." She said, "It took me 4 hours to bake it, and it was gone in 10 minutes. And I don't even know whether she got a bite out of it. Because there was Lella and Albert and all of them, and I don't know, 4 or 5 of the kids were still home, you know. And the time come around for her, to my knowledge, I don't think she ever did bake another cake. But that was a labor of love. Oh, boy. And one time she came to our house. I don't know whether you kids remember Grammy being there. Grammy Tufford. And she had a heart condition, and so she wouldn't get up when we got up. She'd get up about 9 o'clock, and she says, "I'll get my own breakfast." And, well, I said, "This is Mom's stuff in the refrigerator." I said, "You just take what you want." And she loves cheese. And she'd been there about a week, and she said, "I've never seen a place like this," she says, "where you've got everything you want to eat." And she was, the fact that Then she said when I came, she said, I kind of wondered how I was going to fit into the family. And she said there wasn't any trouble at all. She said that we came and we loved her. And she was very, very happy. That was after Grandpa Tufford had died.
How long was she there?
Well, she stayed a month, and then she had a bad heart attack, or we was afraid she was going to have one. And so she had to go back to Evelyn's in, what's called Venice then, Venice, California. But now it's what is that called? Mar Vista. And she lived in a little trailer in the back in Evelyn and Goldie's place. They're in Mar Vista, California. And then she, I don't remember how, I think it's 12 or 14 years that she had without him.
She came out to Cheyenne either she was at the wedding of ours, or she was there before that or something, because I met her out there in Cheyenne.
Did you meet her? Yeah, well, that must have been...
It wasn't during the wedding.
No, it wasn't the wedding, no, because she had to go back. And I was...
Maybe it was before I met her.
Yeah, you probably did when you probably just met Bernice or something. Because I don't remember. You kids courted 9 months.
Yeah.
And, you see, you were married in May, so it would be
out every day, was worried every day.
Well, let's hear about Grandma and Grandpa's courtship.
Yeah.
Are there two sides to the story? That's what I mean.
This Grandma and Grandpa.
Oh, here?
Your courtship.
How did you two meet?
Are there two stories, or is there just one?
No, there's two stories, really. I met him, I went with him for 5 weeks. I was introduced to him through a friend of mine. The boy she was going with and Grandpa worked together. Grandpa Tufford was building houses in Alamosa. And he tried to go with me, and I turned him down. I wouldn't go. I wouldn't date him. And so then...
Who'd you turn down? Grandpa?
Grandpa.
Oh.
Yeah, I wouldn't go with him.
Why?
I just didn't like him.
Oh.
And I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for that yet. See, that's what it was.
How old were you?
Well, it took us 1.5 years before we got married.
How old were you when you first met him?
I was 19. The year I graduated from high school. And then he went out and moved up on a homestead out in Uinta Basin. And we were gone 10 months. And I went out to see him in November. Well, anyway, he moved up on his homestead in November. And then I visited with the family then for three weeks to get acquainted with them. And then we came back together to on the trains to Alamosa, and then we just we had corresponded back and forth by letter, really. We didn't know too much about each other or our backgrounds or a thing. And it took me quite a while to come around to the fact that I was in love with him. I didn't want to admit it.
Well, what made you start dating?
But out on my homestead, my brother-in-law, and he had 4 kids then. We all went out and hooked up on it. Indian, dead Indian. So we went down to the river and chopped some logs, made a log house, 1 room, 1.5 figured it. And my sister and him and all 4 kids, and we all stayed in that house till he could build him one. It was out on the Platte, and we had to haul water 4 miles to get the water.
By horse? Did you haul it with horse and wagon?
Yeah, oh yeah. So, there wasn't wasn't any cars out there then. There wasn't any automobiles out there.
Yeah. But did you write to each other?
Yeah, we corresponded.
Is that where you got to know each other better? Through mail?
Through the mail a little bit. It got to where it was hard to write a letter. There wasn't anything to tell him about, you know. And he was the same way.
It was pretty well acquainted, but I had to get out now. So, for my birthday or something, she sent me a present. Yeah, for the smoking stand.
The what?
A smoking stand.
Oh.
I'm going to have to talk a little louder.
She sent me a birthday present. Nice smoking stand. Had dirt floor. My brother-in-law, he got the biggest kick out of it. The kids and that he's ever seen.
Did you smoke quite a bit then, or?
Pipe, constantly.
Pipe.
She didn't know what I was living up.
Well, no, I had no idea that it was going to an old log cabin, you know, with no dirt floor and
So
stuff
that's
like
where
that.
you lived when you first got married?
No, we lived in Alamosa.
Oh.
No, we were married
That's just the
in
place
Alamosa.
He proved up on to get the land.
That was his homestead when he proved up before we were married. And we couldn't get married because he was out on the homestead. We couldn't have gotten married any sooner. Well, it took me then from November till April to make up my mind that I really wanted to get married. Because I wasn't quite ready for it.
Yeah, we got married down to her folks, and the preacher was there, and everybody, and she was in the bedroom, getting my hair and getting ready. She stopped and she said, I wonder if I want to go by and see with this. I didn't know whether I want to or not.
Yeah, I went. I was all right. Everything was all there. People, the guests, and everything, you know. And all I needed was my hat. Mother had made me a hat to match my graduation dress. And it was beaded and everything. All silk. It was a beautiful dress. And I had to look in the mirror, and I saw myself, and I stopped. And I said, do I really want to go through with this? And I thought, well, I can't back out now because there's preachers out there, and Bill's out there, and all the people would come in to see it. So I came on out then. I was kind of squeamish right to the last.
That's all right.
Yeah, I just
That's
didn't
all
know.
right.
I think that comes to everyone, though, really, because it's a big challenge when you figure that you're going to change your lifestyle and everything you're going to do, and you're going to have to answer to another person for things that you didn't have to ask or tell them about or anything. That was what got me more than anything else. I had been so independent of my feelings and everything, and then to figure that I was going to have to marry somebody and I would have to share it with them, it was hard for me to do.
When did you first, excuse me,
She had her heart set on, she wanted to be a nurse. That's what it stand for, a nurse.
Were you going to school at the time?
No, I was out of school. I had graduated in 1924, and we didn't get married till 1925, the following year. No.
when did you first realize that you were in love and you were gonna get married? When he was on the homestead?
No, it was after.
It was,
I don't know.
well, after I graduated from high school, Mother and I made a trip to Bridalveil Falls, Oregon. And he was going to meet us in Salt Lake. And so he didn't show up at the depot. And so I had to go on into Oregon without seeing him. Well, I felt real bad about it. And that's when I kind of figured that maybe I really cared a lot about him. And then when we came back, we stayed and visited with the Tuffords for a week. And Mother met Grammy. And Mr. Tufford, he wasn't around. I don't know where your dad was at that time. So Bill came he came in from off the homestead.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had a motorcycle with a sidecar on it.
125 miles.
And he came in to see us. And I don't know, you stayed 2 or 3 days, and then you had to go back out of there again. And
I got there at 3 o'clock in the morning.
oh, that was the last time. Yeah, that's right. And so Wendell, his brother Wendell, and Neva Drysdale were getting married in July, sometime in July. And so then when we went, it was after everything was all over, and we were in the house, and Bill says, let's go outside for a little bit. So we got out and sat in the car, and he told me that he loved me, and he wanted to know if I'd marry him. And I don't know, I don't remember what I said yes or something or other, but he says we can't get married till after I prove up on my homestead. Well, that was all right with me too, because it gave me a little more time. And well, we had a real nice visit, and we had a good time, and I found out that he was a good man, and he was responsible and things like that. It wasn't an impulsive act on either his or my part, because I was almost 20 before I got married.
Well, I was there, we went out to Salt Air at the amusement park. And her brother and I went out there. And we went on the fun house thing.
Oh.
Her mother wanted to go on the shoots. That was a big fun Utah.
Wanted to go on the shoots?
And we wouldn't let her.
Oh.
Yeah,
And she wouldn't.
I wouldn't go either. I wouldn't go either.
Oh, that's right.
I climbed all through all those places where they blow the air up and your skirts would come up, you know, and all this and that and something else, and I got way up there and I looked down and all I could see was, looked like it was a mile down there. So the only way I could get out of there, I had to walk back down again through all of that again.
My grandparents used to date and go to Salt Air.
Did they?
And go dancing out there and all of that, and my parents did.
Yeah.
They used to go out there.
Yeah.
That way you go swimming out there too.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's the first time that I had been in a swimming. Swimming.
You can jump in there, Salt Air, Salt Lake, and you can't sink. So much salt on it.
So all I could do was just lick my fingers and clear my eyes. And then when we got out, we had to go and shower, dress, and everything.
What kind of bathing suits did they have then?
Well, let me think. They were long, down to your knees, and they came up real high and with shoulder straps. A woman was pretty well covered.
So did the man have the same kind? Or did they just wear the bottoms like the men?
No, they had the same kind. They had the tops too. Yeah.
Well, in them days, if we'd appeared on the beach like they do now, they'd have had them in jail.
Yeah, I believe it.
Especially some of the beaches. There's some nude beaches over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then again, sometimes you might go to a water hole and forget your swimsuit.
Well,
Sometimes.
Well, I think he used to do that when he was in Utah. But he always had boys.
Yeah.
A little swimming hole. Yeah. But it was quite an experience for me because in Alamosa they never had anything like that. Maybe a carnival would come to town, but I never got to go or anything like that.
Was Alamosa small?
And in what?
Was Alamosa small town?
Oh, it was about 3,000 people. It was just a railroad town, is what it was. There was the north side and the south side, and we were on the south side, so we didn't associate with the north side because they were more high-toned and had more money. and the working class always lived on the south side of the railroad track.
That's the way it was in Holdridge. We were on the south side of the track.
Yeah.
That was the high class side, wasn't it?
No,
The
No.
quality side.
I think there was probably more love on that side.
We've had a good time, we had a bad time. We went through 2 depressions.
2 of them.
Yeah. First one, bad, second was worse.
The second one you're talking about is the early 30s, 29,
Yeah.
30. When was the first one?
Well, I think he's thinking about a later one when there was one depression that happened later.
Oh, yeah.
And,
42 or
yeah, around
Oh.
42 or 43. That was a short one. That wasn't as bad. But the first one that we went through was really bad. But now my mother and dad went through depression right after they was married. And they were married in 1903. And they had a real hard one. And so it but we managed to get through. We had Lorraine and Bernice.
which one that is down there almost.
Well, that was the first one we went through. We were in Cheyenne with $1 million program, building program set up, and it went down the drain overnight. He lost his job and everything, and we had $18 and 2 kids, and a prospect of a job in Army. He got on that, went over to Army. They had to finish up the courthouse. So we moved from Cheyenne to Army and lived there about 9 months, and then from there we went, I don't know where we went. We had went to Alamosa or I don't know where it was. Anyway, we lived with my folks for a while, and we lived out on Kaysville for a while. Built a great big apple cellar, and a lot of things.
Well, during the Depression, I was lucky. There wasn't any work anywhere. But I got on the CWP. Or PWA. I got on as a foreman on the building the river dike. So I get $1 an hour.
That was a lot of money then.
Oh, yeah.
That was, worked 6 hours in the morning and then have the afternoon. 6-hour shift in the afternoon. And that most of the next.
Got along real good with the Mexicans, and he found out that the Mexicans that was on the afternoon shift wanted to get on his shift. And we'd go to town, and every Mexican in town would say hi to him. When we'd be downtown, when we go shopping or wherever we happened to be, they all knew Bill. So, but some of those foremen, they were kind of ornery to their men, but he never was. He got a lot of good work out of them.
They used to talk Mexican and they'd laugh, I could tell they were saying something about me. So I learned a few words, They was out there one time. I said, courtship, amigo. Oh, they shut up then.
What does that mean?
Hurry up,
Oh.
amigo.
Hurry up, friend.
Amigo's friend, I guess.
Yeah, amigo means friend. Yeah.
Apúrate, amigo. That is hurry up, friend.
Yeah, he built the sections, what do they call them? Not the section, but who's over the taking care of the graveyard and
Cemetery.
There's a sexton.
yeah,
There's a
sexton.
sexton.
Yeah, sexton. And when they were excavating, they found some old graves. And they didn't know what to do about them or anything. I don't know if he ever reported it or not.
I don't think he did.
And they just went ahead and built a house and just right over that. They didn't put a basement in it because there's Artesian wells was what we got our water. The water was so close to the surface that nobody had a basement. You couldn't put a basement in that valley.
Okay.
And
What valley was this?
San Luis Valley, Colorado.
Built that house out of adobe.
They made the bricks.
With straw. And they'd get out there and start laying bricks. They didn't know anything about a straight line or anything. I'd take a chalk line and string along there about that far from the wall. I said, don't get out on that. Stay back of it. So they'd get to work and they'd keep pushing it out. And they get that out and I'd make them go chop that all off there. They finally decided to go like I wanted.
Because they wanted to put stucco on it, you see, afterwards. Adobe brick and stucco. And that's one of the warmest houses you can have and the coolest. Because those bricks are that long and you had a deep window sill. And that's the way the Mexicans live in New Mexico. They're all adobes, you know. And even some of the white people got next to it, that was the cheapest way they could build, and they could have a nice house too.
A lot of times they wouldn't put the bricks lengthwise in the house, they'd put them deep, wouldn't they? Put them so that the brick was this long, that's how wide the wall was.
Yeah. It was one of the best houses. Really.
You know something about adobes?
I know that's how they worked down in Mexico and Argentina.
Oh,
He went on a mission down there.
oh, I see.
He speaks their language. He speaks their language.
Oh, is that right?
Just a little bit, huh?
He lived down there when we went down to Mexico the last time, we went with Scott and Nora. Hadn't been for Scott, we wouldn't have known what was going on down there.
Oh, yeah.
We would come back thinner than I am.
With a lot less money too. They try and take you for thinking you're a dumb American.
Well,
Scott caught him trying to.
how about some of the other experiences?
Yeah, let's get Mom and Dad to tell
Can I
them.
have Mom and Dad sit in the aisle? I think I can maybe move the camera.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Then you can ignore him, Scott.
Up here.
Sit up beside my tummy.
I didn't know it.
You didn't know that was up there.
She knew
If I'd
he
known
could
that,
put it.
I took off my hat.
At their courtship, you guys can tell us the truth.
Well, Dean came and got her and brought her back home. We weren't alone.
You always had a flashlight on.
Yeah.
Is it recording now?
Yes.
You gotta
Okay, ladies first.
Bradley, come here.
She's going to tell us something about her courtship.
Oh, okay.
Well, actually, we met when, let's see, I was about 14 and he was 15 for the first time. We met at the roller skating rink. That was the place where Lorraine and I always went for fun and to meet young fellas. And Lorraine had a job checking in and out the skates. And she got to go out and skate, I got to go out and skate. He didn't know how to skate, but he came in, he had a big black leather jacket on. He looked like one of the, I think he borrowed the jacket from one of his friends. But he had a friend that Catherine Shaw, was it Catherine Shaw, really had a crush on. Walked up home to our house and we played Monopoly for I don't know how long. And he came to the skating rink another a night to see me, and I was like Mother, I guess. I was really too young. I was only 14 or 14, yeah. And so when he came, I hid behind I hid behind some of the shelves where they had the skates, because I recognized that I liked him, but I didn't know what to do about it. And
I think really it was before they had deodorant.
no. It was just that I don't think either one of us ready for it. And he left. He can tell about what happened to him. But I stayed in Cheyenne and went with my friend Betty Moore. We did a lot of running around to the shows and having fun, and I had a couple of proposals of marriage and so on and so forth, but maybe we could let Dad take over and tell what he was doing during that time that I was growing up then, and how we met again.
You're only a year different.
Yeah.
You're both growing up.
Yeah.
One
I thought he was really old though.
Well, during that time, she mentioned, right shortly thereafter, I moved from Cheyenne, Wyoming to Monterey, California. I came out to stay with Dorothy and Gary Eckhart, my sister. And I stayed out here and worked in the cleaning plant and became a compressor. I guess I was here for one of the things that I decided I was going to do is make something of myself. I wasn't in school, so I decided to take a course in radio, National Radio Institute. It was a correspondence course. So right shortly after I got out there, I took that course. And I guess about the time I got almost finished with it, I left. And then from there, I went into the Army. And by the time I got out of there, that was 18 months. And I got out of the Army, came back to Cheyenne, because that's where I had an opportunity to get a job. I was going to hire out. In fact, I went to Holdridge, Nebraska first, went home, put in an application at the telephone company, because in the Army I had taken what they call telephone repeater course and graduated from that, and I was supposed to be keen in electronics at that time. So I thought I'd work there, and then Kenny called from Cheyenne, said you better come out here, more opportunities. So I went to Cheyenne, made application with the telephone company there, and the same day, they weren't hiring anybody right then, they'd taken my application. Same day I walked down to Union Pacific to see if they were hiring anybody, and they hired me. I went to work the next morning. So that's how I started on the UP, and I had developed a little friendship with some of the fellows there, and one of them was a young man about my age. I don't remember his name now.
Yeah.
But he had a date. No, he didn't have a date. Yeah, he had a date with Bernice.
Oh, that's because your date is Shirley Mason.
Yeah, I had a date with Shirley Mason, and she lined up Bernice as my friend. That's what it was. That's what it was. And we went on a double date. So that's when we came back. We didn't realize it right then that we had met each other before. And then later during the course of the evening, we found out that we had met each other, played Monopoly.
No.
Now she can.
Is this Shirley Mason the same one you had a crush on before? Years before?
Years before?
Yeah, the one that...
I didn't know her.
At the same time.
No, he had a crush. I think he kind of had a crush on a Jewish girl in New York while he was stationed there. He always liked girls that all his pictures all had soft faces and was kind of real feminine. They all sort of looked like me. I think I like tall, thin men. Anyway, didn't like the guy that they'd had. His name was Jim something, and he almost got us killed on that date. I'll never forget that. He drove the car across a railroad crossing, and the train was coming, and it missed us by about that far.
You have to remember that this train, the CNS Railroad,
Yeah.
came down to Depot
Arlington.
downtown, yeah, and it was moving real slow, but the nitwit drove right in front of it, and we got by that baby. Oh, yeah.
Anyway, after the date, I think you asked him how the date was, and how he'd liked me and had kissed me or anything. He said, oh yeah, something. He built it really up big, and I didn't care anything for him, and I didn't kiss him at all. So after a while, he found out about it. But anyway, Shirley Mason was a strange girl because she had a lot of boyfriends. And she said, would you go out with Jim? He called himself Jim. Jim Johnson. I don't know why he did, but he had an alias of Jim Johnson. Would you go out with Jim on a date? He'd like to go on a date with you. I said, well, but he's your boyfriend. I said, well, he wants to go on a date with you. And would you go to somehow or other, we got on he took me to see the one thing I liked least to see, that was a football game.
I should have realized right there.
So we went to the football game, and I can't remember much about what time of year it was, but that would be football season. So, and he then had about a couple of dates, and he asked me if I'd go out on New Year's Eve, and that was about 3 months away.
Tying you down.
Yeah. I said, well, yeah, it was 3 months away. Well, he had something real important he had to confess to me. And he said, tomorrow night I'll tell you what it's about. And I thought, oh dear, it could be so terrible. Oh, we went on our date, and we used to go to the Owl. We'd drive around, and we'd go to the Owl Inn, and he'd buy me some hot chocolate and candy bars in his car, and so I should have took heed then. He wasn't an expensive spender there. But let's see, I lost train of thought.
I had to save up my money for the New Year's Eve day.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I remember him telling me this. He said, well, first of all, my name isn't Jim Johnson. He says it's Dean Kentner. But he says, I like to be called Jim. And so we called him Jim, and as long as we lived in Cheyenne after we were married, he was always Jim to the family, and that's why we called our first boy Jim, because he liked the name so much. And then he was real ashamed of the fact that he hadn't finished high school. But he had family situations where I would have done the same thing. I would have left home like he did. But he made his own way and got his education and got his high school graduation, and has 2 years of college credits. And I think that was probably a lot more than if he had done it just by going to school. And plus he had learned a lot of things through life. Can you think of anything? We lived on the back of, why don't you tell about where we lived?
We haven't got married yet.
Well, we got married.
How'd you propose?
He never did.
Never proposed.
Never. He just kept saying, as soon as I get $1,500 or something like that, I'll get married. And he never proposed.
What made you think he was talking about you?
Well, it was because of all the spooning we were doing.
At the tennis court.
The tennis court. See, we didn't go to many movies or anything like that. We sat around the tennis court, so you get to talk a lot at the tennis court. But he knew that his brother owed him that exact amount of money. He had that in the back of his mind. If he didn't save up the money, he had a place to get it. And so when we did get married, he made his brother pay him back the money that he owed him. So Kenny paid him back the money. So when we got married, he had his $1,500.
Yeah, we got married, Grandma just said that she didn't get married until she was 20. You were 19, but almost. And I was 20 and almost 21. Unlike Grandma, I don't know about Grandpa, unlike Grandma, I was ready to get married, and there wasn't any doubt in my mind. I was ready. I couldn't hardly wait for May 9th to get there.
When did you start working for the railroad?
I started August 4th, 1947. We got married May 9th, 48.
Working as freight people.
Yeah.
He started out on the railroad, though, in the machine.
Well, I started before I went to California on the railroad in the summertime in the machine shop. Yeah.
And that's where he erased his birth certificate, made himself a year older so he could go to work for the railroad. And that later caught up with him on the railroad.
Not too long ago, actually. It's when I went from transportation department to the traffic department. They were checking my records because of the transfer from one department to another, and the dates didn't jive up. And they wrote a letter and wanted to know what it was that was wrong. Something was incorrect. So I had even forgotten that I'd sent in the wrong information on the original, and so I had to certify that I was actually the age that I was. So I had to get a new copy from the state of Nebraska and send it in, certify that I was the age.
When we moved to North Platte, then I started calling him Dean. I think you asked me to do that. So it was always strange when we used to go back to Cheyenne. You always called him Jim, and I was calling him Dean. It took quite a little bit doing for me to call him Dean after I'd called him Jim for a couple of years.
Initially, after we got married, we lived in an apartment for a short time, not too far from Grandma and Grandpa. It was, I've forgotten what street that was. A block up from Uncle Leo, whatever the old street was. Anyway, they lived on Van Lennon, and just a block or a block and a half up, we lived on the corner of an apartment house. And then we decided to buy a trailer house. So we bought a small trailer house, and they were kind enough to let us sit it on the back of their lot. We set the trailer on the back of their lot and stayed there for, well, we moved down to North Platte in 49.
We had Cynthia. I had Cynthia. So
She was 6 weeks old when you went to North Platte.
Yeah.
She was born in 49.
She was, yeah.
She was born in
So I
Cheyenne.
think we lived about a year on your lot. And I can remember Mother out in the driveway just crying, tears rolling down her face that we were leaving. And my first chick leaving home.
Yeah, sure. Shook me up.
Hated to see that baby go because she was such a sweet little baby.
Oh, she was a doll.
And
The first grandchild.
Well, when did Lorraine have hers?
A month later.
a month later.
There's Bernice's was, I can't remember what month he was born.
September.
September 11th, and Lorraine and Jack was born in October.
October the 13th.
And Yeah, so, but, we did a lot with Lorraine and Ben after we were married. We used to play cards and have fun with them because he didn't like any of my friends. And I don't know if you had very many friends other than the ones that were on the railroad that were kind of single guys. But,
What if I could have a drink of water, Nora?